A teenage girl stands barefoot in a dim, dusty electronics workshop in Lagos, clutching her perfect exam results like a lifeline. Her father, the man who once carried her on his shoulders, turns slowly, looks her dead in the eyes, and says the words that shatter everything. "You're not worth training." One sentence. Years of dreams crushed in seconds. A father's rejection so cold it still echoes in her chest every night. Sophia was 16, still wearing the school uniform she had refused to change out of because she wanted him to see her as serious, as ready. In her hands she held a folded printout of the university entrance exam results, straight A's in physics, mathematics, computer science. Enough to qualify for the engineering program she had dreamed about since she was 9, the one her father had once promised to support. He didn't look at the paper. Daniel Okoye, broad-shouldered even in his late 50s, kept his back to her while he tightened a screw on an ancient desktop tower. The clink of metal on metal was the only sound for almost a full minute after she said, "Dad, I passed. Top percentile. They're offering partial scholarship, but the rest, we can figure it out." He set the screwdriver down with deliberate care, turned slowly, and met her eyes. Not with pride. Not with surprise. With something colder, something final. "You think this changes anything?" His voice was low, almost gentle, the way people speak when they have already decided. "You still shake. You still fall. Last week you dropped a tray in the kitchen and nearly cracked your skull on the tiles. You want me to pour money into a degree you might never finish? Into a life where every seizure reminds everyone you're fragile?" Sophia felt the floor tilt under her. She had prepared for disappointment, for questions about cost, for the usual lecture about practicality. She had not prepared for this. "I've been managing the meds better," she said, hating how small her voice sounded. The new neurologist said. New neurologist. He gave a short, dry laugh that held no humor. Another bill. Another promise. I've spent 20 years watching doctors promise and watching you pay the price. You're not worth training, Sophia. Not in this shop. Not in school. Not in any dream that costs more than it gives back. The words landed like a physical blow. She actually took half a step backward, the printout crumpling between her fingers. He stepped closer, close enough that she could smell the faint motor oil on his sleeves. His eyes never left hers. "I built this place with my hands. Brick by brick. Late nights, no sleep, no safety net. I did it so my children wouldn't have to struggle the way I did. And you," he paused, letting the silence stretch until it hurt. "You are the struggle. Every day. I can't keep carrying that. I won't." Sophia waited for him to soften, to add, "I'm sorry," or maybe later, or even, "I still love you." None of those words came. Instead he turned back to the workbench, picked up the screwdriver again, and resumed work as if she were no longer in the room. She stood there for what felt like hours but was probably less than 2 minutes. The bulb flickered again. A motorcycle roared past outside, bass thumping through the thin walls. Somewhere in the distance a generator coughed to life. Normal sounds. Everyday sounds. But inside that shop the air had changed. Something permanent had cracked. But what he didn't know, what no one saw coming, was that those same words would become the fuel for the most extraordinary comeback you'll ever hear. From secret midnight coding sessions in a flickering library, to building a tech empire that touches lives across continents, to the day her father walks into her boardroom, resume in hand, begging for a job from the daughter he once called worthless. This is not fiction. This is raw, real life under pressure, the kind that leaves you silent, then typing in the comments with your own story. She looked at the back of his head, at the gray beginning to thread through the black hair she used to braid when she was little. She waited for him to turn around. He didn't. Finally she unfolded the printout one last time, smoothed it against her thigh, then placed it carefully on the edge of the workbench where he would have to see it. She didn't say goodbye. She didn't slam the door. She simply walked out into the humid evening, past the neighbors who pretended not to notice, past the Okada riders calling for passengers, past the small mosque where the call to prayer had just begun. When she reached the main road, she stopped under a streetlight that buzzed and blinked like it was tired too. She pressed her palms to her eyes until the sting dulled. Then she whispered to herself, barely audible above the traffic, "Okay. Then I'll do it alone." Behind her the workshop light stayed on late into the night, the way it always did. But Sophia never stepped foot inside it again. If you believe stories like this still matter. If you've ever been told you're not enough, hit that subscribe button right now to hotspot true life stories. Turn on notifications. Because the truth is about to unfold, and you won't want to miss a single second. Let's begin. The public library in Ikeja closed at 9, but the security guard, Mr. Tunji, had known Sophia since she was 12 and used to come with her mother to borrow Enid Blyton books. He never asked why she stayed until the last possible minute, then slipped out the side door after he pretended to lock up. He just left the back computer lab light on and the air conditioner running low. She chose the corner terminal farthest from the entrance, the one with the scratched screen and the keyboard missing 2 letters, F and J, but she had learned to feel for them by touch. Every night she sat there in the same faded hoodie, the hood up even though the room was warm, as if hiding from the empty chairs around her. The only sounds were the hum of the old CPU fan and the occasional click of keys. At first she didn't know what she was doing. She typed, "How to code for beginners free," into the search bar and clicked the first result that didn't ask for money. Python. Simple. Logical. No one could take it away from her once she understood it. She started with print, hello, world, then variables, loops, functions. Each small victory felt like stealing something back. Her seizures came without warning. The first one in the library happened 3 months after she left the workshop for good. She woke up on the floor, cheek pressed to the dirty carpet, Mr. Tunji kneeling beside her with a folded jacket under her head. "You bit your tongue," he said quietly. "But you're okay now." He didn't call her father. He didn't call anyone. He just helped her sit up, gave her water from his own bottle, and said, "When you're ready, the computer is still on." After that she started tracking everything. She downloaded a free app that let her log episodes, time, duration, what she was doing before, how she felt after. She noticed patterns. Stress made them worse. Sleep debt too. Caffeine helped until it didn't. She began experimenting, small changes, like drinking more water, breathing deeper when the warning aura started. She wasn't curing anything. She was managing. And management, she discovered, was power. She moved from tutorials to real projects. A simple calculator. A to-do list. Then something more personal, an epilepsy tracker that didn't just log data but reminded her to take meds, warned her when patterns looked risky, even sent gentle vibrations to her phone if she forgot to log a meal. She built it piece by piece, debugging late into the night while the city outside quieted. Sometimes she whispered to the screen, "Come on, work," the way her mother used to coax the old kerosene stove. One night she found an open-source community forum. People from everywhere, India, Brazil, Canada, even a few from Lagos, sharing code, asking questions, cheering small wins. She created an account under the name Silent Code. No photo. No real name. She posted her tracker as a prototype. Within days strangers were replying, "This could help my sister. Adding this feature would be great. You're doing good work." For the first time since her father's words, someone saw what she made and didn't look away. Money was tight. She took odd jobs, typing transcripts for a small media house, fixing neighbors' phones for a fraction of what her father used to charge. She saved every naira for data bundles and the occasional cup of tea at the roadside stall. Her mother slipped her cash when her father wasn't looking, never asking where it went. "Just keep breathing," her mother would say, pressing the folded notes into her palm. Sophia didn't tell anyone about the seizures getting fewer. She didn't want pity, and she didn't want hope that might be snatched away again. But the numbers didn't lie. From 3 major episodes a month to 1 every 2 months, then longer stretches of clear days. The new neurologist at the teaching hospital had adjusted her meds twice. The rest was her routine, discipline, the stubborn refusal to let her body dictate the story. She kept the workshop memory alive like a bruise she pressed on purpose. Every time doubt crept in, she remembered his eyes, the way he'd said, "Not worth training," as if it were a fact written in stone. She typed faster. She learned JavaScript next. Then mobile app development. She told herself, if he won't train me, I'll train myself until the world has no choice but to notice. One evening, after uploading an improved version of the tracker, she leaned back in the chair and stared at the ceiling. The library was silent except for the tick of the wall clock. She felt something unfamiliar shift inside her chest, not anger anymore, not quite hope, but certainty. Quiet, unshakable certainty. She whispered to the empty room, "I'm not fragile. I'm just getting started." Outside, rain began tapping the windows, soft at first, then steady. Mr. Tunji appeared at the door, keys in hand. "Time, small madam," he said gently. Sophia closed the browser, logged out, and stood. For the first time in months she didn't feel like she was running from anything. She felt like she was walking toward something. And somewhere in the code she had written, a small alert blinked on someone else's phone halfway across the world, a reminder to take their medication. A stranger she would never meet felt a little less alone because of her. The fracture her father had made was still there. But cracks, she was learning, are where light gets in. The upload button hovered on her cracked laptop screen like a dare. Sophia's finger trembled above the trackpad, not from an aura, but from the weight of what she was about to release into the world. It was past midnight in the small one-room apartment she shared with her cousin in Suralire, Lagos. The fan rattled overhead, stirring the humid air without cooling it. Her phone, propped against a stack of textbooks, showed the epilepsy tracker prototype, clean interface, simple log button, medication reminders, trigger patterns charted in soft blues and greens. She had named it PulseGuard. No fancy logo. Just function. She clicked. The progress bar crawled. 10%. 30, she held her breath until it hit 100. Published. Available on the free App Store for Android first, iOS would come later when she could afford the developer fee. No announcement. No social media blast. Just a quiet post on the forum under Silent Code, version 1.0 live. Feedback welcome. It's basic, but it's mine. The first download happened within minutes. Then another. By morning, 27. She stared at the numbers while sipping tea from a chipped mug, heart thudding harder than after any seizure. Strangers were using something she built. People she would never meet were logging their days because of her code. The first real test came 2 weeks later. She was in a crowded Danfo on her way to the teaching hospital for a follow-up when the familiar metallic taste flooded her mouth. Aura. She gripped the seat, counted breaths, willed it away. It passed, barely. No full episode. But the fear lingered. She pulled out her phone, opened PulseGuard on her own device, and logged it, partial aura, bus ride, stress trigger suspected. The app reminded her to take her next dose in 30 minutes. She did. Simple. Life-saving in its quiet way. Feedback started trickling in. Messages on the forum, emails through a free contact form she'd set up. A woman in Abuja wrote, "This is the first time I've seen my seizure patterns clearly. Thank you." A father in Nairobi, "My son is 16. He feels less alone." Sophia read each one twice, tears blurring the screen. She replied to every message personally, late at night, fingers flying. But success brought shadows. Her younger brother, Chitty, mentioned it casually over family dinner one Sunday. Her mother had invited her, her father silent at the head of the table. Sophia's app thing is getting downloads, Chitty said, scrolling his phone. People are talking about it online. Daniel's fork paused mid-air. He didn't look up. Downloads don't pay bills, he muttered. And she still needs to eat. Sophia felt the old wound reopen, sharp and familiar. She kept her voice even. It's free, Dad. For people who need it. He finally met her eyes. Then it's worthless. The table went quiet. Her mother changed the subject to the price of yam. Sophia left early, claiming a headache. The app kept growing. 100 downloads. 500. A small tech blog in Lagos picked it up. Local developer creates epilepsy tool for underserved communities. No name attached, silent code stayed anonymous. But the article spread. Shares on WhatsApp groups. Mentions in epilepsy support forums across Africa and beyond. Then came the seizure that almost broke her. It hit at 3 a.m., tonic-clonic, the worst in years. She woke on the floor, body aching, mouth bloody from biting her tongue. Her cousin found her, called the ambulance. In the hospital bed later, for dripping, she asked for her phone. The app had logged it automatically, motion detection from the accelerometer she'd coded in. It had sent an alert to her emergency contact, her mother. The message read, possible major seizure detected. Location, home. Check on user. Her mother arrived in tears, holding her hand. I got the notification. I knew before the neighbor called. Sophia whispered, it works. The doctor adjusted her meds again, praised the self-tracking. This kind of data helps us see trends doctors miss. When she returned home, the app had crossed 1,000 downloads. Comments poured in, gratitude, suggestions, stories. One user wrote, I showed this to my neurologist. He's recommending it to others. Sophia sat on her narrow bed, phone in hand, watching the counter tick upward. She thought of her father's workshop, the dust, the finality in his voice. She thought of nights she cried into her pillow, convinced she was broken. Now strangers trusted her with their most vulnerable moments. She opened a new document and began typing feature requests, community forum integration, better visualization, perhaps integration with wearables someday. Her fingers didn't shake anymore. Outside, the city hummed, okadas, generators, distant music. Inside, something steadier was building. Not loud. Not flashy. Just persistent. She saved the document, closed the laptop, and lay back. For the first time, the silence in the room felt like peace, not absence. A notification buzzed on her phone, another download. Another life touched. She smiled into the dark. Something important was surfacing. The apartment in Suralere felt smaller every month, not because the walls moved, but because the ambitions inside them kept growing. Sophia traded the single mattress on the floor for a narrow bed frame she bought secondhand, then added a second monitor she bargained for at Computer Village. The fan still rattled, but now it shared space with the software of a laptop that never fully shut down. PulseGuard had crossed 10,000 downloads. Then 50. Then 100,000. Users from Lagos to London, from rural Kenya to urban Toronto, logging their lives, sharing anonymized data that made the app smarter with every entry. She incorporated quietly. No splashy launch event. Just paperwork filed online, a business name, Pulse Innovations, and a bank account that started with the small savings from freelance coding gigs. The first real money came from a grant, a small foundation in Europe supporting health tech for low-resource communities. 10 million naira. Enough to hire 2 developers part-time, rent a tiny co-working space in Victoria Island, and pay for the iOS version. She still answered every user email herself, still logged her own seizures, still whispered, "Thank you," to the screen when a new 5-star review appeared. Word spread in quiet circles. A neurologist at the teaching hospital presented PulseGuard at a regional conference. A tech accelerator in Nairobi invited her to pitch. She went, first flight of her life, wearing the same navy blazer she'd bought for job interviews she never got. On stage, voice steady, she said, "This isn't about curing epilepsy. It's about giving people control over what they can control." The room applauded. Investors approached afterward. She took the first term sheet that offered funding without asking her to give up majority control. The money changed things slowly, then all at once. She moved to a 1-bedroom flat in Lekki with good internet and 24-hour power. She hired a small team, a UI designer named Aisha who laughed easily, a back-end engineer called Tund who worked faster than anyone she'd ever met, and an operations manager, Fatima, who handled the endless paperwork. They worked long hours, but the office smelled of fresh coffee and possibility instead of solder and disappointment. Success brought new kinds of silence. Old friends from secondary school started messaging more often, asking for small loans or connections. She helped where she could, quietly, but noticed how conversations shifted the moment money entered the room. One childhood friend unfollowed her on Instagram after she politely declined to invest in a questionable crypto scheme. Another asked why she hadn't remembered her family sooner. Sophia learned to smile, say little, and keep moving. Her father never asked about the app. At family gatherings, birthdays, Christmas, Daniel sat at the head of the table, ate slowly, spoke mostly to Chitty about football and politics. When Sophia entered the room, he nodded once, a small acknowledgement, then looked away. Her mother hugged her longer each time, slipping notes into her bag, "I'm proud. Don't let the quiet fool you." Sophia kept the notes in a drawer, unread sometimes for weeks, because reading them made her throat close. The company grew. PulseGuard added premium features, advanced analytics, doctor-sharing options, integration with smartwatches. Partnerships came, a pharmaceutical company sponsored free subscriptions for low-income users, a major telecom bundled the app with data plans. Revenue followed. First modest, then substantial. Sophia paid herself a salary that felt almost obscene compared to the years of scraping by. She bought her mother a small house in the suburbs, title in her mother's name alone. When the keys were handed over, her mother cried without sound, just held Sophia's face between her palms and whispered, "You did this with your own hands." The betrayal that stung deepest came from within the family circle. Chitty, now 22 and still living at home, approached her one evening at a restaurant in Ikeja where she had taken them all to dinner. He waited until their father stepped outside to take a call. "Sis," he said, leaning across the table, "Dad's shop is struggling. Rent is overdue. Suppliers won't extend credit anymore. He won't ask you himself, he's too proud, but maybe, you could help. Just a little." Sophia looked at him, really looked. The boy who used to tease her about her shaking hands now stared with something between envy and expectation. "I offered once," she said quietly. "He said it was worthless." Chitty shifted uncomfortably. "He's changed. He's older. Things are hard." She nodded. "I know. I'll think about it." She didn't tell Chitty she already knew about the shop. She had driven past it one rainy afternoon, seen the faded sign, the fewer customers, the padlock on the side gate when it used to stay open late. She had felt a pang, not satisfaction, but recognition. The same slow collapse she had once feared for her own life. That night, back in her flat, she opened her laptop and stared at the company dashboard. Millions in revenue. Thousands of lives touched daily. A valuation that made headlines in local business pages. And still, the old fracture remained. She closed the laptop, walked to the balcony, and looked out at the Lagos skyline, lights flickering like distant seizures, beautiful and unpredictable. She whispered to the night air, "I built something he said I couldn't." Now what? The city didn't answer. But somewhere in the distance, a generator hummed on, steady, persistent. The reckoning was closer than she realized. The envelope arrived on a Tuesday morning in late November, plain white with the bank's logo embossed in silver. Daniel Okoye left it unopened on the kitchen table for 3 days, as if ignoring it might make the words inside disappear. On the 4th day, with the house quiet and his wife at market, he slit the top with a butter knife. Inside, a formal notice of intent to foreclose on the small commercial property that had housed his electronics repair shop for 28 years. Arrears. Interest compounded. Final payment demanded within 60 days or the bank would proceed to auction. He read it twice, folded it carefully, and placed it back inside the envelope. Then he sat at the table, staring at the chipped formica surface where Sophia used to do her homework. The shop had been his anchor, his proof that hard work could outlast bad luck. Now it was sinking, and he had no lifeboat. Word reached Sophia through her mother, who called late one evening while Sophia was reviewing quarterly reports in her Lekki office. The room was quiet except for the soft click of her mouse and the distant hum of air conditioning. Her mother's voice came through small and careful. He won't say it himself, but the shop, they're taking it. He's been sleeping in the living room chair. Barely eats. Sophia closed her laptop. She felt the familiar tightness in her chest, the one that used to signal an impending seizure but now signaled something else, conflict she had spent years trying to outrun. I know, she said. Chitty told me months ago. Silence on the line. Then her mother whispered, he's ashamed, Sophia. Too ashamed to ask. She ended the call gently, promising to think about it. But she had already thought. For weeks she had watched the numbers, the shop's declining foot traffic captured by public satellite data she could access through a business analytics subscription, the overdue utility bills mentioned in passing by a mutual neighbor. She had even driven by once at dusk, parked across the street, and watched her father lock up alone, shoulders rounded, the neon repairs sign flickering like it was tired of lying. She didn't feel triumph. She felt tired. 2 weeks later, the bank issued the final notice. Daniel applied for a small business loan, his third attempt in as many months. Every application came back denied. Age. Declining revenue. Health issues noted in medical history he hadn't meant to disclose. He sat in the bank lobby for hours, waiting for managers who never appeared, then walked home under a sky heavy with rain that refused to fall. That same afternoon, Sophia received an email from an anonymous applicant through the company's careers portal. The resume was brief: 30 years in electronics repair, expertise in circuit diagnostics, customer service. No cover letter. Just a name, Daniel Okoye, and a phone number she had known since childhood. She stared at the screen for a long time. The office lights dimmed automatically at 7, she didn't notice. Her team had gone home. Alone in the glass-walled conference room, she opened the attached CV. The format was old school, typed on a machine with uneven spacing. Skills listed in careful bullet points. References included 2 old suppliers who had long since retired. She printed it. Held the pages in her hands. The paper felt thin, almost fragile. The next morning she called the HR manager. Process this application quietly. Schedule an interview for next week. Mid-level technician position. Don't mention my name. HR hesitated. Are you sure? His experience is dated. We're moving toward IoT diagnostics. I'm sure, Sophia said. Give him the standard questions. Let him speak. The day before the interview, her father called her for the first time in 4 years. Not through her mother. Direct. His voice sounded smaller over the line. Sophia. I need to talk to you. She let the silence stretch. Then, tomorrow. Come to the office. Victoria Island. 8 a.m. He arrived early. She watched him from the security camera feed, still broad-shouldered but slower, gray hair more prominent, wearing the same navy shirt he'd worn to her secondary school graduation, now faded at the cuffs. He sat in the reception area, hands folded, eyes on the floor. When the HR team finished the interview, they sent him to the executive floor. Sophia waited in the conference room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the lagoon. She had asked them to leave the blinds half open so the light came in soft. He entered without knocking. Stopped when he saw her standing by the window. For a moment neither spoke. Then he said, very quietly, "I didn't know it was yours." Sophia nodded once. "I know." He looked around the room, at the sleek table, the framed awards, the large screen displaying real-time user metrics from PulseGuard. Thousands of active users that morning. Lives being tracked, supported, remembered. "I applied because," he swallowed. "The shop is gone. They took it yesterday. I have nothing left." She watched him. Not with anger. Not with pity. With the calm of someone who had carried the weight for so long it no longer bent her. "I didn't bring you here to gloat," she said. "I brought you here because you're qualified. The position is real. The salary is fair. You'd report to the hardware integration team. You'd help us make the devices more reliable for people who can't afford mistakes." He stared at her. Tears gathered in the corners of his eyes but didn't fall. "Why?" he asked. "Because I learned something you never taught me," she said. "Strength isn't refusing to break. It's deciding what to do after you've been broken." He looked down at his hands, calloused, steady once, trembling slightly now. "I was wrong," he said. The words came out rough, like they had been lodged in his throat for years. Sophia didn't rush to fill the silence. She let it sit between them, heavy but no longer hostile. "I'm not asking for forgiveness," she said finally. "I'm offering a second chance. Take it or don't. That's up to you." He nodded slowly. Then, almost inaudibly, "Thank you." She walked him to the elevator. When the doors opened, he stepped inside, turned, and for the first time in decades looked at her without looking away. The doors closed. Sophia stood there until the indicator light showed the lobby. Then she returned to her office, sat at her desk, and opened the app dashboard again. A new user had just logged an episode. The system sent a gentle reminder. Somewhere, someone breathed a little easier. She closed her eyes for a moment, felt the quiet settle. The past wasn't erased. But it had finally begun to loosen its grip. Something deeper was about to surface. The conference room smelled faintly of fresh paint and citrus air freshener. Morning light slanted through the half-open blinds, striping the long glass table in gold. Sophia stood at the window, hands clasped behind her back, watching speedboats cut across the lagoon below. She had arrived at 6, reviewed the day's agenda, then asked everyone to clear the floor for this one appointment. No assistants. No observers. Just the two of them. Daniel entered at exactly 8. He wore a clean white shirt tucked into pressed trousers, the same combination he used to wear when he took her to church as a child. His shoes were polished, though the leather had begun to crack at the toes. He paused in the doorway, eyes adjusting from the bright reception to the softer interior light. She turned. "Good morning, Dad." He nodded once, the motion small and careful. "Sophia." She gestured to the chair across from hers. "Please." He sat. Hands flat on the table, fingers laced. She noticed the tremor in them, subtle, but there. Age, perhaps. Or nerves. Or both. She remained standing for a moment longer, then took her seat. The distance between them felt measured, deliberate. Not hostile. Not warm. Just present. HR had sent the standard feedback summary earlier, solid technical knowledge, dated on newer protocols but quick to learn, excellent diagnostic instincts, reliable under pressure. The panel had recommended higher, pending final approval. That approval was hers alone. She slid a single sheet of paper across the table, the offer letter. Salary. Benefits. Start date. Probation period. Standard clauses. He read it slowly, lips moving slightly as if sounding out the words. When he reached the compensation figure, his eyes widened for half a second before he controlled them. "This is generous," he said quietly. "It's market rate for the role," she replied. "You'll be working on hardware compatibility for the next generation of wearables we're integrating with PulseGuard. Your experience with legacy systems is actually an asset here. Many of our users still rely on older devices." He looked up. "You could have chosen anyone." "I could have," she agreed. "But no one else has 30 years of hands-on repair in exactly the kind of environments our users live in. You know what it means when power cuts out mid-diagnostic. You know how to jury-rig a solution when parts aren't available. That matters more than the latest certification." Silence settled again. Outside, a fairy horn sounded low and mournful. Daniel folded the offer letter carefully, as if it might tear. "I came here expecting. I don't know. A refusal. A lecture. Something to make it easier to walk away." Sophia leaned forward slightly. "I didn't bring you here to punish you. Or to save you. I brought you here because the work needs doing, and you can do it." He exhaled, long and shaky. "I told you you weren't worth training. I said it like it was truth. Like it was kindness. I believed it would protect you from disappointment. Instead I protected myself from mine." The admission hung between them, plain and unadorned. Sophia felt the old ache rise, then settle. "I spent years proving you wrong. Not to hurt you. To survive. Every line of code, every download, every user who said the app helped them feel less alone, that was me saying I was worth something. Even when you couldn't see it." He looked at his hands. "I see it now. Too late." "Not too late," she said. "Just late." She paused, letting the words breathe. "I'm not offering you forgiveness today. That's not mine to give on command. But I am offering you dignity. A place to work. A purpose. The chance to contribute to something bigger than the shop we both lost in different ways." Daniel's eyes glistened. He didn't wipe them. "I don't deserve this." "Deserve is a dangerous word," she said softly. "I stopped using it a long time ago. What matters is what we do with the time left." He reached for the pen she had placed beside the letter. His hand hovered, then steadied. He signed. Neat, deliberate strokes. The same signature that used to appear on her school reports. When he slid the paper back, their fingers brushed for the first time in years. Neither pulled away immediately. "Thank you," he said. The words were rough, but clear. She nodded. "Report to Fatima on Monday. She'll handle onboarding. Welcome to Pulse Innovations." He stood. She stood too. For a moment they faced each other across the table, two people who had once shared a home and a life, now sharing something quieter, recognition. He turned toward the door, then stopped. Without looking back he said, "I'm proud of you, Sophia. I should have said it sooner." The words landed gently. She didn't respond. She didn't need to. They both heard them. He left. The door closed with a soft click. Sophia remained standing for a long minute. The room felt larger now, emptier, but not hollow. She walked to the window again, pressed her palm to the cool glass. Below, Lagos moved on, traffic, water, life in constant motion. She thought of the first night in the library, the flickering terminal, the stubborn certainty that had carried her this far. She thought of the users whose seizures were logged, whose reminders sounded, whose nights were less frightening because of what she had built. And she thought of the man who had just left the room, carrying a second chance he hadn't earned but would now have to live up to. When pride grows louder than truth, silence becomes dangerous. But sometimes, after years of silence, truth finds its own quiet way back. She returned to her desk, opened the dashboard. A new alert, another user logging a clear day. No episode. Just life, continuing. She smiled, small, private, real. The fracture had not vanished. But light was pouring through it now. Something important had finally surfaced. And with that, the story reaches its reckoning and release. What remains is the quiet truth: dignity isn't given once and kept forever. It is rebuilt, day by day, sometimes by the very hands that once withheld it. Pride can blind us. Rejection can scar us. But choice, the decision to offer a hand instead of turning away, can mend what seemed beyond repair. If this story touched the part of you that has ever felt unseen, unworthy, or simply tired of carrying old wounds, know this: your worth was never up for debate. It was always yours to claim. Thank you for listening to Hotspot True Life Stories. If Sophia's journey reminded you of your own, or gave you hope for someone else's, leave a comment below. What part stayed with you the most? Like if you believe second chances should be earned through action, not words. Share if you know someone who needs to hear that they are worth training, worth building, worth everything. And subscribe so you never miss the next real story that proves life, even under the heaviest pressure, can still turn toward light. Until next time, keep breathing. Keep building. Your voice still matters.